What's up, you guys? I hope you're very well. I hope you're having a very nice day. And in today's video, we're going to be making a little bonsai terrarium. In the past, I've made tons and tons of these to sell, and they've sold pretty well. They're also very cool to look at. They're also very cool to keep at your office if your office is next to a window. So today we're going to be working on one of these. So over here, I got the little fishbowl. I think this was like $3, 3.50, something like this. So it's really inexpensive, yeah. And over here, I got the little plants that I normally use. These are junipers. This is like the traditional bonsai plant or bonsai tree. Some of them have been damaged by the sun, but it's no problem because I'm growing them in this large container where they can grow freely. So I'm going to use one of these, the ones that look green, and I'm also going to use some little hot sauce. I'm also going to use some plants from the garden to, create a little landscape. So I'm going to start with the substrate. I'm going to explain that, and then we'll continue on from there. Yeah. So here we go. So I'm going to start by adding a layer of the substrate that I'm going to use, and I'm going to give you a close up really soon. But you can see that this is your typical bonsai soil. Yeah. What do I mean by that? This is a substrate that's going to be very well draining, and that's really important for terrariums. You want to add nutrition, and you want to add everything that the plant needs. And one of those things, especially, is drainage. Because otherwise you're going to end up with a lot of water in your substrate, especially if it's a closed terrarium, and you don't want that. So over here, let me just show you. I show you the tray where I have the terrarium. So you can see that the bonsai soil that I use, it contains a lot of pumice and a lot of lava rock. It also contains some organic matter, but in general, it's just a very well draining soil that we're going to use. So I'm using an old spoon to put it in, and that's basically this step. Yeah. So I'm going to continue putting on the soil. If you have larger particles like this, I think it's a better idea to just remove it. It's just going to add to the aesthetics of the whole build. I'm going to continue doing this, and I'm going to form like a little wall that's going to be leaning to the backside, and that's going to give us like levels in the build. Yeah. What we can do is use the spoon or whatever tool I'm using in order to do the hardscape, or move around the elements of the terrarium that are not alive, like dead wood or like rocks. This is the very first step, and it's really easy. Yeah. So I'm going to continue doing this, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's finished. So here we go. So here we are. I fill it up all the way to the point where I wanted it, and you can see what I was telling you here. This is like a slope that's slanting towards the back of the build, and you can easily come in with the spoon and move the soil around. I'm sure there are professional tools you can do this with, but if you don't have any, you can use a spoon. Even the narrow or the back side of the spoon, the handle of the spoon, you can use it to move around the soil. So that's it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant the little juniper here. In order to do that, I just got to take it out of the container, yeah, of the colander. So here we go. So I decided I'm going to use this one. You can see that the size is nice and fitting. It's going to look really good. And you can see that the root mass is nice and healthy. If you can see, like, you see that thing right above the knuckle of my thumb. Let me see if I can get close. Those white tips right there, that means that the roots are alive and that they're active. So that means that the little plant is healthy. That's exactly what we want. We can't transplant junipers all year round. It's better if we do them right after winter or during autumn. So just a little tip that you can apply to your builds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the camera down, and I'm going to place it here. And a very good idea is to think about the angle in which this little guy is going to grow, because that's going to give you, just another factor when it comes to the aesthetics of the whole build. I know I mentioned this before, but you want this whole composition to be beautiful. So yeah, it's up to you, but it looks better if it's center or to the side or to the other side. You just think about those sort of things, and you'll end up with something that looks really, really cool. So I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Yeah. So here we go. So here we are. One of the things that you got to do is that you have to make sure that everything is nice in place. For example, if I move it slightly, you don't see that it's completely loose. And you can do that by pressing down on the substrate once you've added enough. Yeah. Once you've added enough substrate, you can come in with your fingers or with a tool and really pack in the soil so that everything is nice and firm. And remember that you got to use enough. Yeah, use enough soil so that the roots of the little plant are completely covered. Okay. And another thing that I like to do is I like to do a little bit of hardscaping. In my case, I use this sort of like gray stones that you can buy as decoration. Uh, these are a bit large. These are a bit bigger than what I usually use. So I'm gonna look for a couple of them, and then I'm gonna put them in the build. Yeah. So here we go. So here we are. I've already placed one of them inside. And same as with the little plant, you gotta make sure that everything is in place and it's not gonna move around. So I've got this one over here, which is longer. I'm just gonna put it in. A nice idea to keep in mind when you're placing the stones in place is that um, if you use an an odd number, like not an even number, it looks better. So just another note on design. And the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and plant a lot of these little plants that I showed you at the beginning. This is a micro fern. It's not really a fern, but this is a little plant that grows like crazy where I live. And it's very, very good for terrariums. You can see the tiny leaves. And I also have this one over here. I'm going to clip a tip. They don't need to be rooted because they root super, super easy. So that's the last step. Yeah, plant heavy, and right after I do this, I can come in and do this. What I what I do is I pick up a pair of tweezers, and I just put them, in between the rocks, and in between the substrate, and like I said, in no time these will root, and they'll be part of the build, right? And they'll be alive, of course, and you will have to prune them, and this will look really, really good. Yeah, so I'm going to continue doing this. We're going to talk about the final notes to keep this baby alive. Yeah, so here we go. So here we are. You can see that I planted a bunch of little plants. um, this is a little Fittonia. This is actually a wild Fittonia. And these little plants, like I was saying, they grow freely in my garden, so you can use them, to adorn the build. And, here we have it. It's really cool. It's really nice. It's very low maintenance. That's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. You got to find the sweet spot so that the plants, the this little herbs, well, not herbs, but weeds or accent plants are having enough water, and this little guy has enough drainage. That's why I use bonsai soil because it has a lot of drainage. It does contain some organic matter so that it also holds water, but if you overwater, you're definitely going to see it because of the glass wall. Yeah. So a very good rule of thumb is to water it enough so that the first inch of the container is filled with water, and then you wait until all of the water evaporates. It starts to get a little dry until you water again. And when it comes to location, I keep it right next to a window so that it gets enough light, but not so much that it burns the little plants, the little accent plants. Other than that, these are pretty easy to take care of. And like I said, this is a cool little project to have at your office, or maybe do it as a project with the kids, and they'll learn about ecosystems and the roots and the plants. I think it's really, really cool. So definitely give it a try. If you have any comments, doubts, questions, anything, drop them down below. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye.